is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm writing this account in the year 1936. At the request of the county records office, they asked me to document what happened to my family, to warn others. What occurred at the Ashford farmhouse in the autumn of 1932 defies every rational explanation. I've tried to convince myself it was nerves, the isolation, tricks of the light. But I know the truth. Something evil lived in that house, and I fear it's still there, waiting for the next family foolish enough to move in. We came to the farmhouse in rural Vermont in September of 1932. My husband Thomas, our daughter Emma, who was 15, our son Michael, who was 12, and myself. Times were hard. The depression had taken Thomas's job at the factory. When we saw the listing for a farmhouse with 10 acres for almost nothing, we thought it was Providence. The house was a beautiful 1800s farmstead, white clapboard siding, wraparound porch, good bones. The bank agent said the previous owners had abandoned it suddenly, 2 years prior. Just up and left in the night, he said, left everything behind. We should have wondered why. The first few days seemed normal enough. We unpacked our modest belongings, arranged the furniture we'd brought from the city. Emma helped me hang curtains. Michael explored the woods behind the house. Thomas was optimistic. He'd found work at a neighboring farm, and we had our own land to cultivate. "We'll make a good life here, Sarah," he said. "Away from the city, fresh air, honest work." But almost from the start, something felt wrong. Thomas noticed it first. He'd be working in the fields, plowing or mending fences, and he'd get the strangest feeling, like someone was watching him from the tree line. "I keep turning around," he told me one evening, expecting to see someone there. "But there's never anyone. Just that feeling, like eyes on the back of your neck." I laughed it off at first. "You're not used to being alone outdoors," I said. "In the city, there were always people around." But then I felt it too. I'd be hanging laundry on the line, and I'd sense someone standing just behind me. I'd whip around, heart pounding, and find nothing. Nothing but empty fields and distant trees. It happened over and over, that creeping sensation of being observed. At night, we started seeing shadows. Thomas would be locking up the barn before bed, and he'd see a figure moving near the house. He'd call out, thinking it was a vagrant or a thief, and run toward it. But by the time he reached the spot, nothing was there. "Probably a deer," he'd say, but his voice was uncertain. I saw them too, dark shapes moving past the windows, the silhouette of someone standing in the yard, always at the edge of my vision, always gone when I looked directly. "Maybe it's an animal," I suggested. "A bear or wild dogs." "Maybe," he agreed. But we both knew animals didn't move like that, didn't stand upright, didn't watch. Michael started having nightmares. He'd wake up crying, saying he heard someone walking in the hallway. Emma became jumpy, always looking over her shoulder. But we told ourselves we were imagining things. The isolation, the stress, the unfamiliar creaks of an old house. We convinced ourselves it was nothing. We were wrong. It started on the 8th night. But looking back, there had been signs even before that. Strange things in the fields. Thomas would find his tools moved, fence posts pulled up by morning. "Vandals, maybe," he said, though we both knew there were no neighbors close enough. I'd see things from the kitchen window, a figure standing at the edge of the field, perfectly still. I'd blink, and it would be gone, or someone moving between the corn rows. But when Thomas checked, nothing, not even footprints. One evening, Thomas came in shaken. "I heard someone breathing," he said, "right behind me, close enough I could feel it. But when I turned, nothing. Still, I could hear it, breathing." That same night, Emma came downstairs, pale and frightened. "There's someone in the yard, a woman, just standing standing there, staring up at the house. Thomas grabbed his rifle and searched outside. The yard, the barn, the fields. Nothing. But when we looked from Emma's window, there were footprints. Small, barefoot, leading to directly below her window, then stopping, as if whoever made them had vanished. That night, I saw her too. A girl, young, standing in the field, wearing a white nightgown, pale in the moonlight, just standing there, staring at me. I called for Thomas. "Do you see her?" He saw her. We both stood frozen. "I'm going out there," he said. "No," I grabbed him. "Something's not right. Don't go." But he went anyway. He walked closer, 50 yards, 40, 30. And then she turned. Not her body, just her head, all the way around. I screamed. Thomas froze, and the girl smiled. Then she was gone. Thomas came back, pale and shaking. "That wasn't possible," he kept saying. But we'd both seen it. That was the night we realized we weren't alone. It was all real, and it was only going to get worse. The scratching in the walls started that very night. I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of scratching, slow, deliberate, like fingernails on wood, coming from inside the walls. I lay there listening, heart pounding. The scratching moved from the wall beside our bed, across to the corner, then up toward the ceiling. "Thomas," I whispered, shaking his shoulder. "Do you hear that?" He mumbled, still half asleep. "Probably mice. I'll set traps tomorrow." But it didn't sound like mice. The next morning, Emma came down to breakfast looking exhausted. "I barely slept," she said. "Someone kept knocking on my door. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks, over and over. But when I opened it, no one was there." Michael laughed. "You're imagining things." "I'm not," Emma snapped. "It happened like 10 times. Thomas and I exchanged glances. "Probably the old house settling," he said. "These farmhouses make all kinds of noises." That night, Michael heard it too. Footsteps in the hallway, walking back and forth for hours. Heavy footsteps, like an adult man pacing. We all heard them, all 4 of us, lying awake in our separate rooms, listening to something that shouldn't exist walking through our home. Thomas got up to investigate. The moment he opened our bedroom door, the footsteps stopped. The hallway was empty. All the bedroom doors were closed. Nothing moved. He stood there for 5 minutes, rifle in hand, listening. Silence. The moment he closed our door and got back into bed, the footsteps resumed. "We need to get help," I said. "And tell them what? That we hear footsteps? They'll think we're mad." But it got worse. So much worse. A week later, the voice started. Emma heard it first. A woman's voice, humming. No tune, just a low, monotonous hum, coming from the corner of her room. She called me up to her bedroom. We stood there together, listening. The humming was there, faint but unmistakable, and it was coming from the empty corner where Emma kept her desk. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaking. The humming stopped. "See?" Emma whispered. "You heard it too, right? I'm not crazy?" "You're not crazy," I said, pulling her close. That night, Thomas set up a recording device in Emma's room. We wanted evidence, proof that something was actually happening. The next morning, we listened to the recording. For the first hour, nothing. Just silence and the occasional creak of the old house. Then, at 3:17 a.m., clear as day, a woman's voice. Emma. Not humming, speaking, saying our daughter's name. Emma hadn't been in the room. She'd slept in our bed that night, too scared to be alone. Whatever was in that room had called her name when she wasn't even there. Thomas's face went pale as we listened. "That's not possible," he kept saying. "That's not possible." But we all heard it. Emma's name, spoken by a voice that shouldn't exist. Over the next few days, the voice became bolder. It started speaking during the day, in front of all of us. We'd be eating dinner, and a woman's voice would say, "I'm hungry too." We'd be listening to the radio, and the voice would laugh. Michael would be doing homework, and the voice would whisper wrong answers in his ear. 7 times 8 is 54. And always, always, us everything we had. We looked into hotels, but our savings were nearly gone from the move. We had nowhere to go. We were trapped. That's when things turned violent. Emma woke up one morning with scratches on her arms. 3 long, parallel marks, like someone had dragged their fingernails down her skin while she slept. She'd been lying between us all night. Neither Thomas nor I had touched her. The scratches were deep. Some of them bled. "Who did this to me?" Emma sobbed, showing us her arms. We had no answer. Over the next week, the scratches appeared almost daily. On Emma's arms, her back, her legs. Always 3 parallel marks. Always when we weren't looking. Then the bruises started. Finger-shaped bruises around Emma's wrists, like someone had grabbed her. And the poltergeist activity intensified. One morning, we woke up to find every piece of furniture in the living room stacked in an impossible tower reaching to the ceiling. The sofa tilted at a wrong angle, the dining table balanced sideways, chairs upside down and crooked, all defying gravity. The next night, we heard banging, rhythmic, violent banging on the walls, starting in Emma's room, moving through the house, circling us, so hard the pictures shook on the walls. Thomas ran to Emma's room. The banging was coming from inside her closet. He threw open the door, empty, but the back wall of the closet was dented outward, like something on the other side was trying to punch through. The dents got deeper with each hit. Outside Emma's window, the old oak tree was shaking so violently, its branches scraped against the glass. Leaves flew off in all directions, even though there was no wind. Thomas pulled Emma out of her room, just as the closet door ripped off its hinges and flew across the room, embedding itself in the opposite wall. We all ran downstairs. The kitchen was in chaos. Every drawer had been pulled out and thrown on the floor. The refrigerator door was opening and closing rapidly, slamming over and over. And in the middle of the floor, written in what looked like dirt or ash, the words, "She's mine, leave her here." Emma collapsed, sobbing. "I can't take this anymore. Please, we have to leave. Please." Thomas was trying to reach anyone who could help. But before he could, something grabbed him. An invisible force lifted him off his feet and slammed him against the wall. Once, twice, 3 times. He fell to the floor, dazed, blood trickling from his forehead. Michael was pulled backward by his shirt, dragged across the kitchen floor toward the basement door. "Mom, help!" I grabbed him, held on, but the force was too strong. The basement door flew open, and from the darkness below, we heard it. Margaret's voice, no longer childish and sweet, deep, guttural, inhuman. "If you try to take her, I'll kill you all." The lights exploded. Every bulb in the house burst simultaneously, raining glass down on us. Outside, the trees weren't just shaking anymore. They were bending, roots ripping from the ground, branches reaching toward the house like grasping fingers. One massive branch smashed through the kitchen window. Emma was screaming, Michael was screaming, Thomas was trying to get to his feet, and then, in the darkness, I saw her again, Margaret, standing in the basement doorway. But this time she didn't look like a 15-year-old girl. She looked like something ancient and wrong, wearing a girl's shape. Her face was twisted, mouth opened impossibly wide. Her eyes were black, completely black, and she was tearing at herself, clawing at her own arms with her fingernails, gouging deep wounds, pulling at her own hair, ripping chunks out by the roots. Blood ran down her face where she'd scratched herself, but she was smiling. "This is what they did to me. This is what it feels like, and Emma will feel it too, forever." She raised her bloody hand and pointed at Emma. Fresh scratches appeared on Emma's arms, deep ones, mirroring exactly where Margaret had scratched herself. Emma's hair was yanked out in clumps, falling to the floor. She was bleeding, crying, begging for it to stop. Thomas lurched forward, putting himself between Margaret and Emma. "You can't he said, his voice shaking but firm. "I don't care what you are. You can't have my daughter." Margaret's head tilted at an unnatural angle. "Then you'll all die here, together." The house began to shake, the entire structure groaning and creaking like it was about to collapse. Cracks appeared in the walls. The ceiling plaster fell in chunks. Outside, every tree on the property was now bent toward the house, branches scraping against the siding, roots tearing up the ground. We were going to die, all of us, right here in this house. And then suddenly, it stopped. The shaking ceased. The trees went still. The temperature returned to normal. Margaret was gone. In the sudden silence, we heard a car pulling up outside. It was Dr. Elizabeth Vaughn, a professor of paranormal studies from Boston. Thomas had written to her weeks ago, desperately seeking help. She'd finally come. Over the next 3 days, Dr. Vaughn prepared everything. She explained that Margaret wasn't a ghost, but a poltergeist manifestation, created by the death of the original Margaret Ashford in 1847, but sustained by the fear and energy of anyone living in the house. She'd been growing stronger for over 80 years. "We don't stop her," Dr. Vaughn said. "We contain her, lock her in the house permanently. But it requires a ritual, and it requires bait." Emma was crying. "I don't want to go back in there." "You won't be alone," Dr. Vaughn promised. "And if we do this right, Margaret will never be able to hurt anyone again." We had no choice. Emma was being attacked no matter where we were. The ritual night came. Dr. Vaughn had drawn symbols in salt, placed candles, prepared incantations in a language I didn't understand. Emma sat in the center of the living room, surrounded by a protective circle. "Call her," Dr. Vaughn instructed. "Invite her to show herself." Emma's voice shook. "Margaret, I know you're here. I know you're lonely. I want to help you." Silence. Then from upstairs, a child's voice. "You'll play with me?" "Yes," Emma said, tears streaming. "I'll play with you, but you have to show yourself. Come down here." We waited. The temperature dropped. Candles flickered but didn't go out. And then we saw her. A girl, maybe 15 years old, in a long white nightgown. Her face was pale, eyes dark and hollow. Scratches covered her arms, exactly like the ones on Emma. She stood at the bottom of the stairs, head tilted, watching Emma with an unsettling intensity. "You came," Margaret whispered. "I came," Emma said. "Will you play with me now?" Margaret smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Forever and ever and ever," she said. She took a step toward Emma. Dr. Vaughn began chanting. Her voice grew louder, more forceful. Margaret's head snapped toward her. "You're trying to trap me. I'm trying to free you," Dr. Vaughn said. "You've been trapped in pain for so long, Margaret. Don't you want to rest?" "No!" Margaret's voice became a shriek. The windows rattled. Picture frames fell from walls. She lunged at Emma. The salt circle flared with light, stopping her. Margaret clawed at an invisible barrier, her face twisted in rage. "Let me through! Emma is mine!" Dr. Vaughn's chanting grew faster. The symbols on the floor began to glow. Margaret turned her fury on us. Thomas was thrown against the wall. Michael was lifted off his feet. I felt hands around my throat, choking me. But Dr. Vaughn didn't stop. The light from the symbols grew brighter, forming a beam that connected to Margaret's chest. She screamed, a sound of pure rage and anguish that made my ears ring. The light pulled her backward, away from Emma, toward the staircase. "No, no, I won't go back! I won't be alone!" But the light was relentless. It dragged her up the stairs, her fingernails scratching gouges in the wood floor as she fought. Dr. Vaughn shouted the final words of the incantation. There was a flash of blinding light, then silence. Margaret was gone. Dr. Vaughn collapsed, exhausted. "It's done. She's sealed in the upper floor. As long as no one breaks the barrier, she can't escape." We boarded up the staircase that night, nailed it shut, drew the symbols Dr. Vaughn had taught us, and we left. Broke the lease, paid the penalty. We didn't care. The house still stands, empty now as of 1936. Listed for sale again, though I cannot imagine who would buy it. Sometimes I ride past it in our wagon when we go to town. I can see the boarded-up staircase through the downstairs windows. And sometimes, late at night when the moon is full, I see a light in one of the upstairs windows, a candle flame perhaps, or a lantern, and a child's face pressed against the glass, watching, waiting. The bank agent calls on us occasionally. "Mrs. Mitchell, are you interested in purchasing the property? We can offer very favorable terms." He never mentions what happened to us, and he never mentions the other families, the ones who moved in during the years 1933, 1934, and 1935. The ones who stayed only weeks before fleeing in the night, just as we did, because the seal doesn't last forever. Dr. Vaughn warned us of this. 5 years, she said, perhaps 10 at most. Then someone will need to renew the ritual, or Margaret will break free. It has been 4 years since that terrible night. Emma still wakes screaming from nightmares. She bears scars on her arms that will never fade. She hears whispers sometimes, even now. "I'm still waiting for you, Emma. We have moved to Boston. Thomas found work at a factory there. We live in a small apartment, grateful for the noise and closeness of city life, the crowds, the people, the gaslight, the sounds of traffic and neighbors. We will never live in the country again. But I know distance did not stop Margaret before, and I know that house is still there, still waiting." This is Sarah Mitchell's testimony, given this 15th day of October 1936, and witnessed by the county clerk. Some houses should never be inhabited, some spirits should never be disturbed, and some doors, once opened, can never truly be sealed shut. May God have mercy on the next family who does not heed this warning.